Hello everybody, this is General Yanis, and today in Death Card Tactics I'm finally looking at the Contemptor Dreadnought and the shooting potential or the mayhem the one Contemptor can do. And I can just reveal already that Taliman is quite excited, counting all the mortal wounds a Contemptor can do. So let's get started. So today, Monday, the 9th of February, I will not bother you with my Codex situation. Of course, there is no news, and no news in this case is bad news. So in this video, I will be reviewing the Contemptor, the Forge World option Elite Choice Dreadnought. It costs us command points to bring, but it still has the core keyword and thus can be buffed considerably, and an improvement to the Helbrute because it has an invul save, which is quite important for the durability and long life of a vehicle in Warhammer 40,000. So in this video, I will be reviewing the base stats of the Contemptor, the weapon options, and the analysis, especially for range damage. I will also look at the melee, but I will be more focused on the long range damage. Then looking at buffs and synergies, being a core unit, it can be significantly buffed. And then I will compare the damage and the durability with other Death Guard units like I did with the Helbrute. So with no further ado, let's take a look. So starting with the base stats and the abilities of the Contemptor. The Contemptor is a single model in the Elite choice, and its point cost, the standard model is 140 points, and you can upgrade it and add weapons, and you can configure it up to 215 points, but there are some quite good builds you can do for 150 points, let's say. It has an 8-inch movement, 3+ weapon skill and 3+ ballistic skill. It has 7 strength, toughness 7, 9 wounds, 4 attacks, 8 leadership, 3+ save, and the 5+ invul save, which is really important. The abilities it has relentless hatred, which is basically, again, something like a disgusting resilience, reducing the damage taken by 1 down to a minimum of 1, but it's just not called disgusting resilience, probably as some commented yesterday, to fit better in with the Contemptor being part of other chaos factions. It has the martial legacy, which means that it takes you have to pay 1 command point to include it in your list per the Contemptors you take, and it has an exploding when dies on a 6. It gives 1 mortal wound within 3 inches. And then the keywords, importantly, it is a core unit vehicle. It has the Bubonic Astartes keyword, and it has the Plague Company, so it can also benefit from contagions and stratagems that are, let's say, Plague Company related. Then, of course, Chaos Nurgle, Heretic Astartes. It's the Death card and the Dreadnought, and it's important that it can get a Death card with a new FAQ from the Imperial Armor Codex, and basically, being Death Guard, you are not losing on any contagions. But I couldn't find any information. I don't think it itself has a contagion range, but it can benefit from the others don't lose the contagion range because it also has the Death Guard keyword. So yeah, so as I said, Relentless Hatred is like Disgusting Resilience ability. It gets the Inexorable Advance. This means that it's able to shoot its heavy weapons with no penalty in engagement range, and it can be quite important for a unit with very good, let's say, heavy weapons, that you also can shoot them as efficient or even more in engagement range. It's faster moving than the Helbrute. It has more wounds, higher strength, and the important 5+ invul save. And the Martial Legacy, of course, means that you have to pay 1 command point for every Contemptor, basically the only downside to taking it over the Helbrute. So let's look at the weapon options. So the Contemptor base cost is 140 points, and the standard configuration is 2 Hellforged heavy plasmas, each for 5 points. So the basic build is 150 points. And this is a heavy plasma cannon, let's say, with you can supercharge it, and it has then strength 8, AP -3, and 3 damage, and you take 1 mortal wound if you for every hit roll of 1, and it is a blast weapon as well. And then basically for each of these plasmas can be freely replaced with any of these options here. So it's a huge table to make just to present you the Contemptor. But basically it could take a multi-melta, a twin heavy bolter, a twin hellforged autocannon, a las cannon, assault cannon, conversion beam cannon, and then the twin Volkite Culverin, which are the ranged options. And this is really interesting. So if we look at this first, it costs the same as the Hellforged Heavy Plasma. So if you take 2 of those, you are up to 150 points. So it's a heavy 8 weapon with a long range, 45 inches for some reason, or 48. Not a plague weapon, and it has a strength 6, AP 0, and damage 2. So immediately it doesn't sound like very efficient, but the ability is that on an unmodified wound roll of 6, you get an additional mortal wound on the enemy on top of any other damage. So with plenty of shots, you have good possibility to deal out mortal wounds. Some of the other options we know from the other, for example, the Helbrute can also take multi-melta, and it's here basically the Contemptor is paying more to add multi-meltas and twin heavy bolters and the las cannon compared to Helbrute. And then some of the choices that it can take, which are a bit specific, is the conversion beam cannon, which is better if the further away it is. So if you are close by, it's not very strong, but if you go further away, you can it increases the strength, the AP, and the damage the further away it is. It also has access to melee weapons. So the Hellforged combat weapon is the cheapest, let's say, thing you can put on. So it's strength double, AP -3, damage 3. So basically this is a strength 14 weapon. And then it has also the Hellforged chain fist, which costs 5 points. It has also strength double, AP -4, and the damage 2d3. But it's very interesting against vehicles. Against vehicles, the damage becomes a straight 6, which can be really interesting. And but you don't take any benefit, let's say, from adding. You cannot get any benefit from adding two melee weapons, as I understand it. And each melee weapon on top of this gets one combi bolter on it, and this combi bolter can be further replaced by either graviton blaster, heavy flamer, or hellforged plasma blaster. So you can make a mixed build with the melee in one hand with some shooting, and on the other you have the long range shooting. Or, as I will focus mostly, you can take let's say primarily long ranged weaponry. On top of all of this, you can add a Hellforged, a Cyclone missile launcher for 25 points. So this is better than the normal missile launcher. So it has heavy 2d6 frag missiles or heavy 2 crack missiles with the typical crack missile and frag missile. So really a lot of options, but now I will mostly focus on how to make a ranged damage Contemptor. So the loadout configurations I've considering here, my primary focus being to find something that's good at long range shooting. So we take the two of Hellforged Plasma, 2 multi-meltas, 2 conversion beam cannons, etc. And very importantly, the Twin Volkite Culverin, 2 of those, 450 points. And then I'm trying also to add the Cyclone missile launcher on top of the Twin Volkite Culverin. I will also be looking a little bit at mixed configuration ideas. So I will take the Twin Volkite Culverin with either the combat weapon or the Hellforged Chain Fist, and I've just kept a combi bolter here and not upgraded that weapon. So let's start by comparing all these weapons here, all these configurations in long range shooting. So here we have the comparison of all these weapons. So here you see the typical graph I'm doing. So this is the damage average damage expected corrected to 100 points. And here we have a different number of different targets. The targets over here, they have invul save. So here these targets have a 4+ invul save. Here we have some units like a Custodes with shield or Guilliman with a 3+ invul save. Here we have some units with 5+ invul saves like Space Marine Terminators, for example. And here we have a bunch of targets that don't have invul saves. Here we can see, for example, some custodians with a 2+ save but no invul save, a land raider with a 2+ save and toughness 8. Here we have some typical targets we can encounter with a 3+ save, and then the toughness increasing in this direction, and then we have say 4, and at the end here we have something like cultists and orc boys with relatively low toughness and not so good saves. So more horde type enemies over here and more elite targets over here. So what we can quickly see here is that the full red line is the 2 times the Twin Volkite Culverin. So it can do most damage across most of the targets, and especially here where we have invul save targets, it can do a lot of good damage here, because it's also including the mortal wounds that this weapon is doing. If we add the Cyclone missile on top, shooting 2 crack missiles, we get a little bit more per point, but probably to save some cost and take probably more Contemptors, it's probably better not to stick with a 150 point Twin Culverin. Where it could struggle a little bit because it's a strength 6 weapon with no AP is, for example, here in some of these targets here, some toughness 7 or toughness 8 tanks with no invul saves. Then it's not as good, for example, here as we see the conversion beam cannon at maximum range or multi-melta. But overall, maybe we can also increase the damage here by other buffs, and we can also do the damage, increase the damage here by applying the -1 toughness contagion. Also because the Twin Volkite Culverin doesn't have any AP, it will greatly benefit by adding the -1 AP from the inexorable contagion. So all in all, the Twin Volkite Culverin seems a very interesting weapon. So let's see how this is compared to a Plague Bear Crawler and some Eradicators, just for comparison. So here we are comparing the baseline damage of the red line is still the same. It's the Twin Volkite Culverin Contemptor, and the green line, it represents Eradicators with their meltas. So the Eradicators can do crazy damage against a lot of targets, but the Volkite Culverin comes close for a lot of targets. And the blue line is the Plague Bear Crawler with Entropy, Cannons, and Slugger, which when I compared it to some other options before, it was the best of the rest, let's say, in the Death Guard arsenal, for example, Defilers or the other Daemon engines we have at our disposal. So the Twin Volkite is basically very interesting, the Contemptor, and it has a little bit here where maybe we can improve for some of the vehicles, but it comes very close to the damage of the Eradicators, and many times it could be better, for example, here with invul save targets. So summarizing the Contemptor configurations, their base damage per 100 points, the average across all the targets in my previous graphs, just getting one number per configuration. Here we are comparing the damage at long range, in point blank, in melee, and then when we shoot the guns in point blank and melee. So we see here at long range the Twin Culverin is the best option, and also in point blank. And then just a quick look in a configuration where the Contemptor has a Twin Culverin and then the combat weapon or the Chain Fist with a bolter. Where, of course, at long range, it's sacrificing the damage output because it has a melee weapon, but it can do a bit more in melee. But even if it has some okay melee capabilities, it is not on par with other Death Guard options. We have a lot of units that can do a lot of melee damage, but we don't have so many units that can do this damage on long range. So, yeah, so even in baseline, it's better than other Death Guard options. So let's look then at buffing and the synergies it can have with characters and Death Guard rules, etc. As I said in the beginning, the Contemptor has the core and bubonic as starters keywords, and therefore it can be significantly buffed by auras and abilities to increase its damage. Of course, it's also difficult to increase its durability further, and maybe more. We can make some healing here. We can the ways to increase its damage. Of course, we can add some reroll once to hit aura from HQ characters. For example, a Chaos Lord would be the cheapest way to do this. Then the Talisman, of course, for anything that's shooty and core in our army, the Talisman plays a center role in buffing the damage with his ability to select a unit to get +1 to hit, which is really helpful. Then instead of hitting on 3+, you're hitting on 2+. With the Culverin, that would be really good. And also the Tollkeeper Relic, the aura that it has, giving exploding 6s on hitting, which will be especially good with the Volkite Culverin, because you will have additional wound rolls and additional possibilities to do the mortal wounds in the wound phase. So Talisman, of course, really interesting with any shooty core unit that we have in the Death Guard army. The Noxious Blightbringer can help the movement +1, getting it up to 9 inch, but I think it's better to stay back with the Contemptors and shoot, so not super helpful maybe, and already 8 inches is quite good, and it's a good mobility that we have compared to our normal Death Guard units. There are no particular stratagems that stand out for the Contemptor, and I don't think it needs it, to be honest. If you have a bolter, you could use the virulent rounds to make the bolters plague weapons, but it's like limited things. Maybe putrid detonation, you can use it if you want to deal mortal wounds if it dies and it's surrounded by some enemies. But there's no particular stratagem like we had for the Helbrute or the Plaguebear Scroller that can increase its damage considerably. And then looking at contagions and relics that can benefit the contagions on characters and relics that can further benefit the damage of the Contemptor. The Volkite Culverin will greatly benefit from enemies being within the minus toughness contagion range. It's a strength 6 weapon, so if we apply to toughness 7 targets, then we are wounding on 4+ instead of 5+. Also, so it will of course benefit quite a lot because the strength is not super high, and it will also greatly benefit from the Inexorables contagion, the Ferric Blight, being able to shoot at targets with additional AP. So the AP 0 becomes AP -1, and then of course we need the character with this relic to be applying this contagion on the target of the Contemptor, or we can use the Flash Outbreak to copy this contagion on a fast unit, for example, a greater Blightdrone or a 30 Bloatdrone with a mower that is advancing ahead of the main line, putting the enemy additionally in this contagion, and then the Contemptors are having a fun time with AP -1 and -1 toughness to the enemies they are shooting. And then Inexorable also have the Lichspore Casket Relic. If the character kills enemy model in melee, you can select one Inexorable vehicle, for example the Contemptor, within 18 inches that regains 1 lost wound. So you can make a little bit of healing, but I think it's more these two effects are more important than healing the Contemptor. So applying those buffs, what does it mean for the damage of the Contemptor with the Twin Culverin for 150 points? In the base case, we saw on average we are doing 4 wounds per 100 points across all the 31 targets I'm calculating, and basically one of those wounds is a mortal wound in the base case. If we apply the -1 toughness on the opponent, we get 10% more on average, because of course it doesn't affect all the targets. If we add reroll once to hit, we get 17% improvement. The mortal wounds are also increasing here because we have more hits, so we have more wound rolls that can do more mortal wounds. And then if we take the Talisman, +1 to hit, and the Tollkeeper Relic, we are adding 50% on top of the base damage, and the mortal wounds also go up by 50%. The Ferric Blight adds 25% to the base case, so 5 total damage, but still the same mortal wounds because the AP -1 doesn't benefit basically the 6 to wound roll. If we apply all those buffs, so the enemy is in -1 toughness, we have reroll 1s to hit aura, we have the talisman with the +1 to hit and Tollkeeper relic, and we have the opponent in Ferric Blight AP1 contagion, then basically we can do almost 10 wounds per 100 points, and we are up to 2 mortal wounds on average here. So basically, again, Talisman is a great boost with his +1 to hit and the Tollkeeper. The Ferric Blight gives more damage on average, and all buffs give a whooping plus 150% damage from the baseline. So I'm starting imagining a fire group of 3 Contemptors, maybe with the Talisman, with the Relic, and the +1 to hit to one of them, and then a Chaos Lord also here to reroll the missed ones to hit, and then we will be dealing massive amounts of mortal wounds on targets. So adding those data to our comparison with other death card units, so if we compare the baseline average damage per 100 points across all the targets, and no additional buffs included in this configuration, we have the at long range shooting, the Contemptor with a Twin Culverin is the leader now. It takes the lead. It can do 4 damage across all targets on average, while the previous leader, the Plague Scroller with the Mortar, Entropy, and the Slugger was doing 3.2 damage, and then all the rest units follow here. And then also in short range, it's only the Foul Blightspawn with a Viscous Pathogen upgrade that can do more damage at short range. Basically, the Contemptor can do the same damage at short range and long range. It doesn't have any more benefit. It just by default it starts with a high damage here. And in melee, if we take the Contemptor with the Twin Volkite and the Chain Fist, it's only average in its damage output in melee. As I said, we have several units, for example, the Death Shrouds or melee Plague Marines or even Possessed and Helbrute. Some of those are better than the Contemptor, so I wouldn't select a Contemptor to do a lot of melee damage. I would try to optimize the Contemptor for shooting, and then we already have a lot of nice tools in the death card shed, let's say, to deal massive damage in melee. So the Contemptor claims top spot in shooting long range and very high in shooting short range. And this is already with a baseline with no further buffs. And if we consider the long range damage with maximal buffs, we see the Contemptor can go up to 9.6 wounds. The Helbrute we saw the last video, it can come up to 6.7. And now I've looked at the Plague Scroller from 3.2 average damage. If we use the stratagem for the Mortar being damage 3, and we also have the -1 AP contagion and the -1 toughness applied, but then we don't have so many other buffs we can apply to the Plague Scroller, it goes up to 4.4. So if we boost all the damage, the Contemptor is basically does crazy amount of wounds and mortal wounds. And also in baseline, it is the leader, let's say, so far. Finally, let's talk a bit about the durability of the Contemptor. The Contemptor has the inval save of 5+, and therefore it's much more durable versus high AP anti-vehicle weapons. And it can withstand almost double the amount of, for example, Melta shots at half range compared to the Helbrute. And this is not point corrected. This shows how many shots of a variety of weapons would it take to kill the unit in total, not corrected for points. But yesterday we saw that, for example, in the previous video, we saw that the Helbrute, probably a group of 3 Eradicators would kill a Helbrute straight out, but they will struggle to kill a Contemptor. So, of course, but still, if we have a unit of 5 Eradicators, they would be able to do it if they can come at half range, but still with the invul save, you have a fighting chance to maybe roll some lucky dice and keep your Contemptor alive, and your opponent will be exposed himself a lot to come close and try to kill your Contemptor. Miasma of Pestilence, of course, is something that can help,
but this can be applied for any other unit in the army, and we don't have anything else we can boost the durability, but at least it's starting from a better position than we saw the Helbrute yesterday. And then if we compare the durability corrected per 100 points to other vehicles in the Death Guard army, we can see the Contemptor. Here we have the vehicle with the least durability is the Chaos Predator with twin las cannons here. If we say this is 100%, then we see the leader of durability is the Plaguebear Scroller. So it's almost 2.5 times more durable here. And we can see here the Contemptor. It's better than the Helbrute and the Defiler and the Land Raider and the Predator, of course. And it's quite close to the other Daemon engines, at least the Myphitic Blighthauler and the Furted Bloatdrone here. But of course, it cannot match the durability of the Plaguebear Scroller, which has the toughness 8. So, but all in all, a better starting position, being close to the Daemon engines, which are quite durable. So, summary and final thoughts. The Contemptor Dreadnought is an elite choice for a Forge World model with very interesting weapon choices, especially for long-range shooting and very buffable, let's say, due to the core keyword. As a melee platform, it cannot compete with other Death Guard units. However, it really stands out in the long-range shooting as the best option analyzed so far, with being able to deal most damage in baseline, but also crazy amounts of damage more if it's buffed properly by Taliman and other buffs. The two times Twin Volkite Culverin for 150 points, and of course you have to pay 1 command point, gives 16 shots with strength 6, AP 0, damage 2, and unmodified 6/2 wound, give additional mortal wounds on the target. So very strong synergy with Taliman's +1 to hit and the Tollkeeper Relic. I would really like to do the 16 shots, let's say hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s through a Chaos Lord, exploding 6s, and then maybe you have even more than 16 wound rolls, and the 6s there give mortal wounds. That would be nice to do on the tabletop when we are allowed to do that again. So you can, with the Taliman especially, you can get many successful hits and also increasing the chance of mortal wounds rolled. So simply put, the best long-range damage dealer for a Death Guard army of all the units I have so far analyzed. Of course, I will be looking at, for example, some of the other Dreadnoughts or the Decimator, but I think so far it looks also it's quite a modest point cost for all this damage. The durability is also good, and it's close to the other Daemon engines in the Death Guard army, but of course not as tough as a Plaguebear Scroller, or not in completely equal terms to Daemon engine, but some decent durability that it can survive a lot more punishment than a Helbrute, for example, that doesn't have an invul save. So what do you think about all this analysis, and have you been lucky enough to own maybe some Contemptors? Have you tried the Twin Volkite Culverins? Do they do as incredible damage as I've calculated here? Are you looking forward to try this configuration, or do you have some other ideas for the Contemptor? Please leave some comments and let's have a discussion. If you like this video, please press like and support the channel by subscribing. If you want to further support my work and efforts to bring you this math content and there are more reviews, you please visit my Patreon page and get some access to some more quick calculations and some exclusive content, but mostly, let's say, for a support point of view. And with these words, General Yanis is signing out. Stay safe out there, and bye-bye.